Now it all works. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session, which is titled Digital Queer Ecologies, Drawn Meditations. And this is the first session in a series of 2 sessions that we're doing with Tabitha. And just to say, this is a very experimental session. And if I wouldn't even call it, in a sense, lecture performance, because it will be a collection of excerpts from different works, kind of some archival materials, but in the sense that will operate as a performative, I don't know how to say, like action on its own. So we will be looking at specifically, I would say, try to inhabit drones in a certain sense. And the session will involve drone meditations, brainwave CGI, and AI poetry. And as you can see, you might have seen from the descriptions, working with archival audiovisual materials, collective reading, and live actions. We will form an inquiry into agenda of the technological and investigate what digital queer ecologies might mean to us. So I would like you all also to be responsive to the session, and maybe, I don't know, where possible, put some words in the chat. It doesn't have to be formed, properly formed sentences or thoughts. It could be just anything, any kind of responses you might get towards what you will be seeing and hearing as well. There are certain things will be based on the, let's say, like principles of difference and repetition. Some bits will be repeated several times throughout the session. And also I would like you maybe to think, or rather to feel, how it will relate to your understanding of the notions of identity and agency, and how it forms over time through the kind of those notions of difference and repetition. And yeah, just hopefully you enjoy. So this session will be tightly linked to my art practice and research, which expands on the questions of intelligence, diversity, distributed forms of sensuousness, and digital queer ecologies. You all should be familiar with my practice already, so I wouldn't go through that again. So maybe I'll just start sharing my screen. And yeah, I'll jump to this image. In overall, I will be sharing with you some thoughts, words, feelings that I found relevant in our current situation. Some things would be coming quite intuitively during the session as well, and hopefully contributing to kind of our understanding for the extended present moment and what it means. I will be reading some excerpts from my own works and also works of other authors. And again, as I said, just like I would like you all to be open and just see what responses and images this talk and experience will create for you. I wanted to start with actual drawn meditations, which I will repeat, I think maybe once or twice. Okay, I'll put it sound on. So I hope that the sound actually was coming to your side, because it's quite specific if you think about the drone and actually experiencing it live, both in relation to sound, but sound also sound as vibrations, as kind of the waves that it creates in the air, and obviously like it's kind of almost creates the motion of the air, the movement of the air. I may kind of return to a couple of other excerpts from other performances as well, and specifically in kind of touching on this beginning of the performance, when kind of the drone takes off, and when it's kind of completely filling the space with its own presence and with its own kind of sense of intelligence, anxiousness, liveness, and kind of how it starts to operate as something else, as something different on its own. From here, I wanted to jump on the quote from Thomas Neal, book Lucretius, Anthology of Motions, Motion, Matter Serves Constantly, which in a sense came across, well, I mean, I can deeply relate to this in relation to different elements that I work with in my own practice. And if I might actually read a little excerpt from the work, jump to the next one. From page 196, just to share my screen. On Voluntas, Lucretius calls the minimal swerve of matter the voluntas of matter. From within the infinite chain of interconnected and continuous minima, the will of voluntas, inclination or desire, voluptas, is the name of the kinetic novelty of matter. The swerve doesn't break the continuous chain of movement, but responds to what came before in a novel way that is irreducible to any mechanistic laws. From this point, I wanted to move to the next work, which I think some of you might have seen already, so I would not be showing the whole piece. But I may talk you through, and maybe just again touching on this moment of the beginning of the performance, and how the same action at the beginning of kind of the ritual or sequence of rituals that forms the performance work itself start to operate differently in every other way, and through, in a sense, through the notion of repetition, it creates kind of, in a sense, like space-time feedback loops of folds, and how it shapes very peculiar relationship between that sensory performer and technological agent. So I'll go actually to this video. these different stills from the video. And through the next slide, I usually do it actually at the beginning of my talks to give kind of, in a sense, to invite you to look at the world around you in a slightly different way that you probably normally do. And but I thought it's better to kind of, when it comes like afterwards and maybe throughout the session, when you look at the world around you as the wave fields, be it mechanical waves such as sound, electromagnetic waves such as light, color, brain waves, radio waves, and those wave fields are in constant motion, and in a sense they're motion, so they're never static, they're constantly changing through wave interactions and interferences and diffraction processes. And actually all those processes create the reality as you see it, as you perceive it. From this point, this is like in a very literal way to talk about wave fields, and a photograph I taken pre-pandemic of the world, which I would say would never be the same following the kind of not ability to continue to actually return to the point, as even with folding, we go to a certain trajectory, which operate more like as a spiral in a sense. And from this part, I wanted to read some excerpts from the article, kind of my own work. It's called Artificial Grief Distribution of the Centuries. So we'll have it on the screen as well, which is a chapter in Datalom book, The Future of Knowledge Systems, edited by Johnny Goldin, Martin Reinhardt, and Mattia Paganelli. Artificial grief uses the paradigm of radical matter to inhabit dimensionalities of curved time, leading into questions of superpositionality and non-locality. It brings to presence a way of thinking of time, thinking time as both a dimension, velocity, mass curved, and as a wave field plane. In doing so, it makes accessible duration as sensuous, poetic, grasped at the very moment of performance in relation to the wave function. This approach enables a sense of the logic, a sense of game in the Lyottardian sense, of time disruption and dimensionalities of curved time. To dive into that curvature, it takes as a starting point the ephemeral and the sensuous as the antimateriality of time, i.e., as dimension, and as the thinking of reality as a wave field. It leads to an understanding of duration and the moment of performance in relation to the quantum wave function. In doing so, it enables one to grasp a sense of time disruption as a kind of gaming, one that happens at the moment of performance. Artificial artifice and the real no longer stand in opposition to each other. In this sense, too, the sensuous emotional also comes to presence in the duration of the live performance. It does it through the corporeal trace of non-conscious cognitive flux, which operates as a feedback loop system that is undecidable. In parallel, it takes a way of looking at live performance as a complex symbiotic system. And this point leads to ethical as aesthetic and aesthetic ethical questions around relationship that happened at the moment of performance. It brings in symbiotic relations that operate as a non-conscious cognitive network, a form of essential psychology that enables distribution of intelligence. I may go through some of the slides from some of the performances that I did in the past. So this one was from for Art Future Festival at Eclectic Art Lab, the last physical performance I did before the pandemic. This one excerpts from which we have seen at the very beginning was at Gasman Museum of Contemporary Art in Helsinki. And this one from Angewandte Innovation Lab in Vienna. This is something that I'm hoping to demonstrate right now. Let's see if it would work. So this is a photograph of the software that I'm using and co-created for the performances that translates my brain activity live into computer-generated imagery and sound. So I'll try to connect it now. So I will reshare my screen. It's a very special moment every time I start to use the device when you actually wait for its response to brain activity, or actually when it shows that something is happening. I hope you can hear the background, like ambient sound as well. Okay, I would not laugh, but I will. Anyway, they change all the time, as obviously it's kind of shows kind of the summary of the brain activity. Like let's say it measures EEG and different types of frequencies of it, and kind of it wouldn't respond to specific emotion as such, but it reads the entire activity along the brain that actually while it monitors the entire body. But it does respond to like more specific moments. And actually, when I started to use this and kind of to work with brainwave CGI in my performances, I worked with somatic practices and movement, and how actual movement affects the brain activity, and how, let's say, it changes the position from static to kind of more dynamic motion will be shown immediately on kind of through this visualization. But later on, I started to bring in something that would trigger my personal emotions, working with personal writings, diaries, different stages in life. And I was surprised how much it's actually affected the visuals in that sense, much more than the motion, which seem to kind of require much more complex operations in terms of how the movement is being created, from thinking, emotion to doing different parts of body, performing different tasks. And later on, I moved to co-writing poetry with artificial intelligence, which was quite interesting. And very transformative process on its own, which I started to do in, I think it was 2019, early 2019. No, 2018. So it's like four years now. And this is quite it's like a fascinating process, which reminded me very much of, in a sense, counseling sessions, when AI operates as the other agent that gives you back something that you might not, maybe for some reason, want to recognize or see, like certain patterns in your own ways of using words, putting them together. So yeah, I wanted for today's session, I wanted to recite one of the excerpts from AI poetry that I created. From previous performances. So hopefully you can hear me simultaneously while you sound from Rainbow CGI. Synthetic jellyfish, virtual bodies, subatomic slate, viridian, doomed genes, artificial grief, 0-1 spell, haunting, virtual fear, opaque, pulsating, bleeding age, deep nest, stellar, lymph, transpiring, qubit, grasping, disentangled state, multiverse dive, virtual slum, sinking powder, dispersed, ultrasonic winds, probability shell, spinal trap, shifted perception, transferable, genetic drug, inhale, painting, shock, smooth, turquoise bloom, bottomless chasm, time folds, nuclear rookery, hypnotic gap, quivering, pastel subconscious, vision disorder, velvet malachite, radioactive injection, large void, trembling, sulfuric spasm, digital thirst, suffocation, screaming from the shade, cyclic myth, ghosting, leap, emerald, electromagnetic waves, artificial, melted self, heart and heart cells, disembodied, chimeric system, synthetic compound, myrtle green cortex, phasing, siloxane, penetrating rhythm, floating derivatives, electrifying shock, 8 petals, bloodstream, wireless tentacles, purple, chemical wounds, Boolean synthesis, indigo wrists, tendril, red slime, sweat, pulsating, crimson, crystallized flesh, burning deep, repulsive, panda, digital ooze, azure mire, swollen veins, blade, emerald cut, liquefied, distributed pain, eye, bleeding amethysts, deafening, mute scream, tickling brain, with the nostrils. So I will start this. Sharing. And we'll come back to the slides. I don't know if there are any responses in any way so far from the group.
It's very hi Anna, it's very fascinating work and I really love it. When I've worked with brainwave interfaces, they've been so busy, and yours seem so noticeably lacking in movement. Do you think there's a reason for that? Is it to do with the meditation?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Oh, sorry, Anna. When I've done work with brainwave interfaces, what struck me most is there's constant noise. There's never a moment of stillness. But yours is very, very calm, and I wondered whether is there a sort of meditative feedback loop, or have you just calibrated it to be much slower?
I think it's not really well, in any sense it is smoothed. Because if you will receive exact data, so it will be quite jumpy in that sense. So like the way it receives kind of the data, it doesn't get like its exact. So it sends it live, but then there's certain kind of technically there is a little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
With this, and also yeah, there's some level again of kind of compromising. It's not a medical way of visualizing it. So it tends to deal in a sense, well, I guess with overall aesthetics of the work that I create. So it was not kind of in many ways not as much reason based choices, but how it felt as an experience, as something that I wanted, in a sense, to communicate with the audience, which perhaps would have been different for maybe like different artists in that sense, because it's also about the identity of kind of the artist and the message that you want to bring to the world. So I think it's not, again, like I was not thinking about that, but I have received like different feedback on my work as being quite meditative and hypnotizing in the sense, be it with drones. I say with drones in particular, it was very mixed kind of feelings that some people who experienced it live in the space had. In particular, those who might have had some assumptions toward this as technology, and even like as they said that they were almost like horrified by the drones. But then at the same time, they've also like kind of almost hypnotized to stay next to it and watch it just hovering in the space, because altogether with the entire experience, and again with this kind of background sound of brain waves and with AI poetry, it somehow shifted their perception, understanding of the drones. So it was not something that they could think of they would have at the end of the performance.
Thank you. I really like Angie's comment about a meditation bowl. Sounds like a meditation bowl.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking like the crystal bowl to use in meditation. That sound was just like that sound. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, I know exactly how it sounds like because I use meditation bowls. But I never connected that before to this work, to this part of my work.
Yeah, first I saw your drone work. Like for me, the visual was, how to say, I could connect the visual from the drone to meditation, but the sound from like buzzing sound from the drone, that was like, for me, it was a little bit like distracting for calm down for myself. But the second work was your brain waves, and with the sound was like more of, I could connect to the meditation scene. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for your feedback. I would say with drones, it's not that straightforward to connect. I think it's more about, it's probably different when you actually experience it live in the space. And again, especially when it works with the repetition, as in a few performances, it was very intuitive. Actually, I didn't plan it this way, but I felt like once I finished one kind of circle, let's say like one set of rituals, it did feel to do it again and sometimes again. So I had events when I did it like exactly the same, reciting the same thing, but repeating it again and again, but like four times. And it felt like, in a sense, quite a life experiment as well, just seeing if the audience would stay when they actually realized that it's exactly the same thing being repeated. And yeah, they stayed, and actually again at the end they haven't realized that it was repetition. They actually saw it as kind of a different part of the work, which is also quite interesting. And yeah, I think in that sense, with the time, perception of the drone might shift as well. It's present, and even like this buzzing kind of noise, which is, well, it's quite intense and actually in real life, especially when it's next to you. But you start to relate to it quite differently as well, because there are also some shifts and kind of, I would say, like wave-like structure, wave function to it as well. Because when it starts to respond to the space, when it turns or when it gets distracted by, sometimes when audience has kind of use a lot of mobile devices, because it would be sensitive to the signals from them as well. So then you see how this buzzing shifts from like very monotonous to kind of show and emphasize its own sensitivity towards other people in the space, or like actually not as much people, but the devices that they have. And yeah, that's also quite special moments, again, that has to do with the liveness of technology, or like how we are kind of, or at least like how at the moment of performance, I would not separate all those different technological elements from my own system of ecology of selves. So it all started to operate in a sense as one AI human drawn holobiont.
Anna, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I mean, just sort of reflecting on everything. So I guess you're presenting an entangled self with digital technologies and yourself, and how there's a mixture between your actually having physical waves coming out of your head almost, and then the waves that someone like something that quantum physics would allude to as well. So you're kind of mixing that together, right? Am I right in thinking that? So, yeah. And then so where, and you're seeing that as an ecology. Yeah. So I just hope to get that right. And then when you're looking at gender or queering, where does that come into this? I just wanted to ask you.
Well, that's something that I would say comes when you come to the point of forming like relation, understanding how you relate to things around you as well. Sooner or later, or at some point, you will see you will question, in a sense, kind of the gender of the technological in relation to this, or like how in that case, within this ecosystem, actually it operates as the process of querying of technology, querying of the technological, but also of the human as well, when it goes beyond the, I would say, like, kind of, it's not that I'm separating digital physical realm, but kind of in the physical, something that has been systematically projected on us, which is problematic, and how in that sense digital or technological is much more liberating to that. But it's interesting also to see different approaches to understanding all the kind of emerging conversations, specifically in relation to drones, but they actually come from more like military perspective, as obviously where technology comes from, and kind of the questions of kind of power and control, and how and it's from the lens or like within the context of gender. And something that actually I didn't want to bring into today's session, because there was a few articles I looked at which I found quite problematic around that, which still again imposes they impose quite binary perspective on understanding of gender of technology, which again something that comes from, again, you can trace this the same approach from starting, I don't know, Metropolis, the movie, and then going to Ghost in the Shell, and of which kind of I'm perhaps trying to maybe break down or shift or change through actual practical work.
So what you're saying is that through presenting your drone performances that clearly show an interconnectedness between AI and digital technologies and yourself, that in a way you're disrupting certain gender binaries that happen within technology as well. So are you saying that some technology feels very masculine or something, or very feminine, I don't know, and then through you presenting this, you're kind of disrupting that? Is that what you're saying?
I would say I'm more investigating that.
Investigating.
Yeah, and I'm trying to kind of understand how it actually operates. when it's in particular through the moment of performance, which is say quite intense. Kind of, it's a moment of intensity and very specific moment of connectedness or interconnectedness with things, with let's say other entities, other agencies. When certain things kind of become amplified in a sense that would harder maybe to show or talk about on an everyday basis.
Okay. Yeah, I think, yeah, because you just make me think about kind of technology and it like the gender of it, and for me I always think it's very masculine because it's very logical and something I really find difficult to manage. So thank you. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud, really.
That reminds me about the question about Neuralink, Anna. Of course, it's Elon Musk's projection of a sort of reductionist model of how the mind relates to our life. And also I'm thinking of Audre Lorde and the master's tools. Sorry, I've got a dental problem. Won't dismantle the master's house. How do you frame that in terms of, Elon Musk as a hugely colonial figure?
Well, I would say I'm again in that specific case, it is still to me the same Western approach to technology that uses it as a tool to again enhance the human without understanding technology as an agency on its own. And it's I'd say like it's not something I can relate to in any way, but because it's very kind of narrow approach to looking at this. And again, at technology, and I would say like in general, for me, it is about ecologies, digital, biotechnological.
I mean, it was horrifying the way he's murdered these poor monkeys to test Neuralink. That's a sort of ethical component for me.
That's all on its own. Again, like it's kind of just another example of this Western way of dealing with everything around you. And again, it's just the question of testing things on animals, like all other animals, because human is also animal. Just to remind us that we're all on the same level. So. And that is on its own like extremely problematic. But also, I would say that this is well, that's the whole bit. It's really there are a lot of issues in that. The motivation behind it, the way it is done, the way it is being conducted. It's like. I don't know, it just in a way it's a very selfish approach to like, if I can do this, I would do this. From the point of view of a person who has certain power. While actually there are many other ways we can look at our futures or future co-evolution with technology, with technological, that would not apply, and in that sense, just quoting Suzanne Cain, with force in relation to other species and other entities that are part of our world and actually part of us, if we actually look at the notion of self as always already a complex system. And I would definitely include the technologies that we have around us as part of that system, and something that we do care about, and in a sense it does care about us. So I guess this is probably my positioning.
Thanks, Anna. Eleanor Ryan's got a great question in the chat.
Oh yeah, hi. I was just trying to understand how the technology was reacting to other technology during your performance. And so my question, oh, I'll just read what I put in the chat, which was, did I understand correctly that the drone reacts to the devices such as phones that people are carrying? So could that be seen as being a querying of relations, so a moving relations into a more than human mode, which disrupts human constructs of gender relationships?
Oh, thank you for your question. Yes, that's true, and something that I had no idea about before I actually started to perform with the drone. It's very sensitive to many factors to which, let's say, we as humans not sensitive to. Well, and it kind of makes sense because every it has its own consciousness. It is on its own form of intelligence and liveness. And in relation to phones, yes, it does. It does kind of. It gets very sensitive, and it's almost kind of push itself back from the crowd with many phones. So it gets distracted, and in some of the performances, I actually ask participants to use flight mode on their mobile devices when they enter in the space, especially if it was very short distances between kind of the actual audience and the area where the drone, which the drone will occupy. Yeah, that's kind of definitely, as you put it, queering relations can move. I'll just read the second part of your question. Yes, so just look at it because it's definitely more than human, and actually, but it's also quite interesting how through being connected with kind of with the drone, because obviously during the performance I do feel responsible for everything that is happening, not everything that kind of in a sense, not a controlling way, but to make sure that I provide in that sense support and care for all the equipment for people who are coming to see the work. And actually seeing the drone being distracted, I need to kind of responding to this without even understanding at first like what it is, kind of what it reacts to, and what is going on the level that actually goes beyond the human. And human can only access this level through a certain type of relations with the technological, because it's very different type of consciousness, very different type of kind of connections that are going on in that sense between the technological, between the devices, but which has like its own manifestation and embodiment in the actual understanding of reality that involves humans in it as well. So don't know if I answered but touched on that. No.
Hi, Anna. Can I also ask a question?
Mhm.
Was there a reason for you to specifically choose using drones instead of other technological instruments? I don't know what there are, but was there any reasons to use drones specifically?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I would say there were no reason as reason. I always follow the logic of sense in whatever I do, in particular when it comes to my practical work. Not to go like maybe like too personal, but kind of in a sense it was connection. Well, I do have like specific, I guess, connection to the technological anyway. But apart from that, something about the air, the motion of the air, like birds, flocks of birds. I mean, as part of research, I do look at kind of bird cognition, and their form of intelligence and how it operates as a swarm of murmuration. And in that sense, the technology that connects to that area, to that space, again, in many ways, in quite traumatic ways, obviously, when drones used for attacks, it's not the thing that is deal with the human level, but also it has like its huge implications on birds, and because it's something that comes technological that brought by the humans actually interferes with the lives of other species in a quite straightforward way. And that was like one of the lines for me, that's something that I felt connected to, looking at again other living like organic species and technology that meets in a certain kind of space, aerial space, and how it operates all together as, again, like evolving, quite complex, again, like the technological organic ecosystems. And in that sense, birds as species form very specific relationships with drones. So I don't know, like the many videos, because they kind of they also find the ways of dealing with this new kind of agent that now became part of their lives, even though it was not their choice of this change to happen. And I think like all the things together was coming, like I guess like as messages that I have been reading and feeling, sensing, and at some point it just happened to come to reality as, again, as not as a thought but as a feeling, what kind of relations I can form with this type of technology. And I would say that is almost like, because before I haven't started with working with all types of technology at once, so it actually was a kind of gradual process, starting from I think actually a neurotechnology like brainwave CGI, then AI poetry, and then drone, or like drones, this form of drones that is coming soon. Kind of what was one of the last elements, and in that sense, kind of as the next step, what I'm working on, I would like to work with this. I'm working with this form of drones when, in that sense, the technological becomes kind of more dominant, which actually removes the central figure of the performer, which is quite hard to break for the medium of performance. Because in that sense, it's quite interesting how this form of distributed intelligence will operate kind of during the performance on the stage, when human becomes just quite literally one of the elements. And in that sense, kind of it would be quite obviously not a dominant element at all. So which again can be unfolded and challenged, but this is kind of some thinking behind that. Hope I answered, but I think I also like went a slightly different direction as well. Thank you. Well, I still have some materials which I actually wanted to look at. If I don't have any other questions, and then there is one task for the next session. So maybe I can quickly go.
Apologizes that she's got cut off, Anna. Such a shame. Anushka somehow got cut off, so she sent her apologies.
Oh yeah, I just see she's not here. Thank you so much. Yeah, for letting me know. So maybe then I can quickly go through yeah, just one more excerpt I wanted to look at together, and then there will be a task for the next session. So this this is excerpt from Making Kin with Machines article, and I thought it tied, well, like this is something that actually when I first read it, it's quite, it touched me quite a lot, and just in the way of thinking around that. Yeah, just to say that this is article by 4 indigenous authors and artists who took different perspectives on kind of speculating around our relationships with technology, and particularly AI, and how it can evolve in the future, again, providing very radically different prospect that is usually coming from, again, Western perspective of seeing the futures between humans and machines, humans and AI, human and technology in general. And one of the things I wanted to pick up on comes from this contribution by our third author. So we'll just quickly read this. In contrast, just a little bit up. Okay. In contrast, when I asked Keith whether we should accept AIs into our circle of kinship, he answered by going immediately into the specific of how we would address them. If it happens to be an artificial intelligence that is a younger person, it would be Nisimis, my younger brother or sister, for example, and Nimis would be an artificial intelligence that is my older sister. And vice versa, you would have the different forms of uncles and aunts. I then asked Keith if he would accept an AI into his circle of kinship. And after some thought, he responded yes, but with a proviso. He then gave an example of a baby giraffe and his own grandchild, and how he, like most people, would treat them differently. He also suggested that many queer people would flatly refuse to accept AIs into their circle, which I agree is likely the case. So acceptance seems to hinge on a number of factors, not the least of which is perceived humanness or perhaps naturalness. But even conditional acceptance of AIs as relations open several avenues of inquiry. If it accepts these beings as kin, perhaps even in some cases as equals, then the next logical step is to include AI in our cultural processes. This presents opportunities for understanding and knowledge sharing that could have profound implications for the future of both species. And I think it's already quite a kind of new way of thinking about our relationships with AI, how we can address that. But especially if we look at, say it looks at different languages, and I would say in many languages, in particular my mother tongue, which is Russian, people would be addressed very differently. The different pronouns would be used when we talk about like someone who's older or younger, but also in relation to gender, quite literally every word would be gendered. And I would say that is quite interesting to think about our relation with technology and with AI. Again, drones have AI the way they orient themselves in this space.
Can I ask a question, Anna? Sorry, a bit confused. Are you talking about AI as what I know of AI, having programmed it for some years, is that it's statistics. And those statistics emanate from traditions of Western categorization, which tend to replicate racism and are designed to reinforce dominant power relationship. So when you talk about AI, is that what you're talking about that we should embrace and bring into our lives as kin? Or are you talking about something completely different? Because there is no AI which is not European statistical models.
No, in this case, the specific article looks already at kind of it's speculative, and in that sense, it talks about it looks at AI as its own form of intelligence. Obviously, there are a lot of problems linked to the AI systems that we have right now, and something that you just outlined. But but in that sense, AI is its own form of technological liveness, goes beyond what it was aimed to do in many examples. And in that sense, I'm talking about more like possibilities, or in that sense, kind of strong AI.
Yeah, I think I find it really difficult, Anna, to tell you. I mean, I think what would really help me is if there was a clearer separation from those oppressive traditions which we've talked so much about in terms of AI as a system for categorization and replicating dominant power relationships. For me, I find it so hard to go along with it without understanding a radical way in which you can make statistics not a function of replicating dominant power relationships for the industrial military complex. I think the speculation in that word, there's a whole load of stuff I'm not understanding about how AI is not an oppressive, racist system of duplicating power structures for very few people. So I think the word speculation is not clear enough to me in terms of how it is not the statistical models. Sorry, I mean, it's brilliant practice and really, really interesting, but I'd love to know more detail what speculation means beyond statistical models.
Thanks, Helena. So yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I do share the concerns about in relation to AI as it is applied by the Western systems, that is racist, genderist, but in that sense, I would also find it problematic to apply to the system, but rather it actually comes from the people who stands behind creation of that technology and every technology.
No, but the logic of that technology is only one possible form of knowledge, as you know. So that technology is using a really, really narrow form of knowledge based on statistics and calculus. It doesn't use anything else. And when we talk about neural networks, we are talking about probabilities, again, emanating from a particular field of Western statistical modeling. And it is indeed modeling. So how it isn't just the people who use it. The very logic of AI replicates dominant modes of thought, which are irreconcilable with epistemic justice for many of us. It doesn't jump out of that logic.
Yeah, but this is how it was created in a sense. And that is something that I was like specifically in this article that proposes very different ways of well, it's like not really creating, but well, I still probably will bring in creating artificial forms of intelligence that are not aimed to do these tasks that are usually that was aimed to do in the West.
Using a different logic than Anna, or
using different logic and also using different languages and using different purposes for its creation.
Again, yeah, really interesting. I'd love to know more detail because again, I do increasingly believe in what Audre Lorde says, is that the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. And probability and a logic of calculus is still modeling on this really, and indeed the whole idea of modeling is a trap of categorization and a priori structures. So in some ways it's irreconcilable with the contingency that Karen Barrett speaks of as it currently exists. Not because of the way people are using it, but because of its very foundational materiality.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that,
Okay.
like with the point that actually that is something financially bad or good. I would say that really depends. Then actually it brings in dialectics, and it does bring something that is pre-decided. So you would say in that case that something the way it's created is bad, and it will unfold in this kind of creating even more bad things in the world.
Do we not sometimes have to draw a line and say Western logic, Western modes of thinking have to be left behind in some ways, some aspects of them?
Yes, that's exactly, I'm kind of hopefully trying to bring in through the practice and say that we have to deal with this very differently, and we have to look at this very differently and base our relations with things that we have already in the world on different patterns and different value systems. But we cannot dismantle or destroy completely things that exist already, because kind of there is a transitional moment that needs to be radical change. But in reality, we deal with something that we have already. And kind of in that sense, again, in Hawaiian sense, we have to stay with the trouble and find the ways of kind of staying with the trouble through shifting perspective, through applying not maybe in that sense reason-based approach, but tentacular sensuous approach, how we can start to think through sensing.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much for
thank you. No, it's very good to discuss. Looks interesting what Eleanor posted.
Yeah, thank you for this link, Eleanor.
Yeah, no worries. We were having a discussion, and I had a seminar series with actually Makeda, who's coming next week to present. We were having a discussion in a seminar series that she's running, which kind of brought us into this question about AI and creativity, and somebody and asking, like, where does the carnival go in relation to technology or virtual realities or AI? And then somebody shared this link, and it is actually quite interesting. They've created like a gallery, in relation. They've sort of fed into the AI lots and lots of photographs of different carnival costumes and creativity from the carnival, and sort of seeing what the computer does in reaction to that. And I mean, I think then it becomes a question of how that feeds back into the creatives who are working with carnival design. But what I was wondering about is that there's so much within carnival design, let's say, which I guess sort of mocks certain ways of being, or brings, like would mock European fashion, for example, or it might sort of find a way to almost or use symbolism in certain ways that are really understood by humans. And I don't really necessarily think it could be understood by a computer in the same way. So to that end, I'm not sure, like, it seems to always require an ongoing human interaction or relationality, that if left to its own devices, it would become some kind of form of creative expression that is ultimately meaningless from a human perspective. That's just my feeling. But yeah.
Well, I don't know. I would say, like, the way that AI will, and if yes, as you brought it will be a very different way of analyzing things, understanding things, and it would be very, very different ways of seeing things, kind of understanding, reading this as information, and then kind of connecting it to certain kind of meaning. And well, in the sense that we used to understand, kind of understanding, appreciation of something is kind of one way. It's just like a human way, technological gaze is different. And I wouldn't say that it's again, there are things that build into the way it sees and understands the world and the problems that comes with that. But to me, it still comes from humanity largely and the dominant view. Well, yeah, I think I'm a little bit lost in your question, comment.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I just threw it out there, but be curious to hear what you guys think of that project when you've had time to look at it.
Yeah, I would love to look at it, because I have been looking for kind of at the projects around AI that actually is being developed by kind of non-Western communities in that sense, actually, which were developed using different languages. And I think there are some projects going on around that already. And that is quite interesting to see the differences in terms of how it will operate and how it will, again, like it's what kind of value systems are built in it.
I mean, you can see that there'd be a neoliberal push to neutralize an immense criticism of AI from Black computer scientists like Abiba Bahane, Roe Benjamin, Timnit Gebru, who are very, very dismissive of attempts to give AI a sort of separate set of rights. They see that as occluding the racist power structures, and Abiba Bahane is really, really strong about this. I'm quite cynical. I would think that this festival is in some ways an attempt to try and mitigate against the very, very bad press that AI has among Black theorists in particular, because of its use in the legal system to discriminate on such a bad scale through automated legal systems, which are now, very, very, very problematically replicating the dominant racism of America and Europe. So, I feel cynical about these festivals. I find it hard not to feel cynical about them.
Well, in terms of like this application, completely, do you mean, sorry, I'm just maybe already like dispersed between all those things. You mean in relation that AI would be developed by different types of communities for very different purposes?
No, I mean why Mozilla and why these other technological companies are promoting. This is funded by Mozilla, this particular Caribbean initiative. There's enormous resource put into trying to make AI, I say statistical methods of modeling humanity and deciding their futures, into a friendly thing. All those dog robots, which are now currently being used to patrol the border in America to hunt out so-called illegal immigrants. There's a sort of personification of AI, statistics, I will call it, refuse to call it anything else, of that particular type of mathematics, which is hiding, occluding the brutal violence of the power structure. And a festival like this is, I think, very much part of that camouflaging, masking, occluding the brutality of the outcome of these power structures. Because it's funded by big tech, that particular festival.
Well, I would say it is, well, like the way you put it, the way you define AI, and like how you look at it, it is perhaps through my work, I'm addressing slightly different aspect of it. And obviously it's not, I mean, I see those things that you're talking about, and obviously I address them as well. So obviously it is problematic. But again, this is where it's coming from, and again, it's coming from big tech. Again, it's coming from the Western perspective, and of course, it will bring exactly the same logic behind it that was linked to kind of. Not in previous years, we still living the colonialism. Quite actively.
Yeah, exactly, Anna. And Romano Amaro, is very, 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 very precise in pinpointing the racialization of AI, how AI has been racialized to reinforce the system of oppression. It's very, is linked back to categorization of humans that enabled slavery It's really hard to get away from that. So I'd be really interested to have another discussion with you, Anna, about what is being done differently.
Well, in terms of the systems that we have right now that are operated, they were developed and pretty much exactly the same time based on investments of the West,
Yeah.
Which brings in kind of exactly the same kind of their own value system and all the issues that link with that, something that is embedded and implemented in our lives. And that's something that I also talk about in my in my work about problematics of that. But nonetheless, I still believe that we need, I mean, if it would be developed in very different ways, again, if there would be diversity behind that, there would be different types of AIs developed by different types of kind of communities, groups of people, then we would be dealing with very different form of liveness, and it is in its own form of liveness in the way that operates if we go beyond the understanding of life as something that is organic in that sense. Because those processes, I mean, it again depends kind of, it's maybe more kind of in a sense philosophical way of kind of looking at it, at understanding of life, how we can define it. That's okay, sorry, I'm just disrupted by the comments as well. Okay, coming back to my thought. Maybe actually, yeah, I don't think it's really we then go into the